Hi everyone. Okay, I'm back now to talk about my various trips from the last while. First one, Brazil, when I went down to South America for a friend's wedding back in April. Geez, it's been 3 months since I posted this. So I went to South America for a couple of weeks and I went to Brazil and Argentina. But I'll split them up into separate videos because there's a lot to talk about, and I will just focus on Brazil for this video. I had not been to Brazil before, so of course it was a new experience. In fact, I haven't been to South America before. But luckily, the wedding was in Sao Paulo, and there's a direct flight from Qatar to Sao Paulo. So it made travel pretty easy, although it was 15 hours. So, quite the flight. Now, the first thing about Brazil is, of course, it does not have a great reputation for safety. Um, it's always known to be rather dangerous, and there's a lot of crime. So, my buddy and I that I was traveling with, we were a bit worried about that. That said, I would say it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. I'm going to guess that maybe thanks to Brazil hosting the World Cup, and then I think Rio hosting the Olympics shortly thereafter, around 2012 to 2014, it cleaned things up a bit. So some areas actually struck me as quite safe. That said, even people there would still tell us to be careful and you shouldn't walk around with cameras or your phones out or whatever, because snatch crime is generally the most common one. People running by or guys coming by on scooters or something and grabbing your phone or your bag. So we were very careful about that. But otherwise, it went all right. Now, you had to be in the right neighborhoods. I mean, just because it's gotten a bit safer doesn't mean you just roam around everywhere. Sao Paulo being no exception. Sao Paulo is Brazil's largest city. It's not the most famous city. Of course, everyone's heard of Rio and maybe a bit less about Sao Paulo, but it's the largest city, and Sao Paulo is the business hub for Brazil. And when we first went there, we were only there for, I think, basically a day and a half. We landed, we had to sort some things out for the wedding. I had to go to a tailor to get fitted out for a suit. I was a groomsman at the wedding, so I had to get a specific suit. And other than that, it was mostly just, dinners out. We went to a traditional Brazilian meat restaurant. What do they call the churrasco? Something like that. Where guys come by with big things of meat and they're like cutting it off with knives onto your plate. And it's just all you can eat. Like, just people keep coming with more and more meat and chicken and stuff until you are absolutely stuffed. It was delicious. We did spend an afternoon at it's called Batman Alley. I think in Portuguese it's called Baco de Batman. I'm not sure why it's called Batman Alley or Batman Street, but it's sort of a bohemian artistic neighborhood with lots of very artistic graffiti on the walls and bars and coffee shops and shops, selling various things. And so we did spend an afternoon there. That was actually really nice. It was nice to wander around the place. And we also had lunch at, believe it or not, an Amazonian restaurant. We were told there are 3 things in Sao Paulo to have: the all-you-can-eat Brazilian meat restaurants, you got to try an Amazonian restaurant, and you should try Japanese, because actually Sao Paulo has a large Japanese population, so they tend to have some really good Japanese restaurants. Now, getting back to the Amazonian one, the thing that stood out for me was ants. We actually had a dish that had some ants in it, like little ants put into the dish. So I did try it. Ants are just pretty much nothing but exoskeletons, so they're just crunchy and weird. It's like eating burnt toast, like little tiny crumbs of burnt toast. Wasn't exactly a fan, but I did it. Other than that, the cuisine was fine. We also spent a little bit of time on the main street in Sao Paulo, Paulista Street. It's where there are a lot of shops, a lot of the main businesses in Sao Paulo are there. We basically wandered around there because our hotel happened to be close to there. And Paulista Street is actually a pretty safe area. So, wandered around, had a snack, did a bit of shopping, and then between that and the restaurants, we were kind of done for the day. And then we had to fly off to Argentina. So then after Argentina, we flew back from Argentina direct to Rio de Janeiro. Now, I will say Rio de Janeiro is a stunning city. It really is beautiful. Like, you see these pictures of these forested hills and, maybe the statue of Christ the Redeemer on top and these beautiful beaches and the city just kind of hemmed in against that. And that is really what it looks like, or at least, the parts up by the shore. So it's stunning. It was beautiful. Now, again, we were told you really do need to be in the right neighborhoods. Not all of Rio is safe. We had been warned a lot about crime. In fact, I had a colleague who was telling me, but this was before 2012, that he and a buddy were mugged at knife point on Copacabana Beach. So this got me all very worried. But having been there now, it is definitely a lot safer than back then. There were thousands of people at Copacabana Beach, day or night. The beach is completely lit at night. Like, they have huge lights just making sure the whole beach is lit. And this beach is long. It's like 5 kilometers. But with all the people wandering around, you didn't really feel unsafe. There was certainly little chance that you were going to get mugged. Snatch crime was possible, but we did see people occasionally wandering by with phones in their hand and stuff, because I think it was just so crowded that no one was too concerned that someone was going to run up and snatch the phones. That said, we were very paranoid about it. Like, I was never holding my phone out anywhere. Or if we were going to stop and take pictures, like the other guy would kind of, just keep an eye out just to make sure no one was running up towards us. But in truth, nothing happened, and Copacabana Beach actually had a really nice vibe. I would recommend paying extra to have a hotel right on the beach, just because of the proximity and because it's just such an interesting place to walk around. Many of the hotels will also have their own areas with loungers and umbrellas, so you can use that while enjoying the beach. One of the things about the beach, though, is there are a lot of hawkers, people going around selling just whatever, drinks and souvenirs and snacks and what have you. And it's like, it seemed like every 2 minutes someone was coming by. Now, that said, it was also a national holiday when we were down there, so the beach was absolutely packed, but there was hordes and hordes of hawkers just all over. So it's something you just got to get used to. Because it is on the ocean, sometimes it got a little wavy, and the water's actually pretty cold. I believe it's a cold water current that goes by Brazil. So, it was not like very tropically hot water. So you didn't have a lot of people swimming. Usually people would go in the water just to maybe cool off from being in the sun all day or whatever, or maybe play a bit in the water. But for the most part, the amount of people in the water was far less than the amount of people sitting on the beach just sunning themselves. Another thing I will point out is that while, I don't know, the stereotype is Brazilians on beaches wear as little as possible. I don't know, it's just, just generally they like the ladies are wearing like the tiniest bikinis and all this stuff. We did go on a tour with a guide one day, and the guide told us that despite that, women do not go topless on Brazilian beaches. And he says sometimes Europeans get caught out that way. Like, Europeans just assume, oh, it's Brazil, everyone's wearing like little bikinis and things, and sunbathing's okay. But it's not, which is in contrast to what we kind of think about Brazil. So if a lady goes topless on Copacabana Beach, suddenly people are going to be like, okay, well, what does she do? Anyway, I didn't see that happen. Everyone was wearing bikinis and Speedos. And, well, a lot of guys were also wearing sort of what I would call North American surfer shorts. But by and large, it was a nice beach to go to, and it was a good vibe. That said, the friend I was traveling with was Muslim, and he did find it a little bit off-putting at times just how much skin was going around. On the beach, he was expecting it, but actually away from the beach, like people were going into like restaurants and shopping around, and they'd still be wearing their swimwear and stuff, which we just found a little bit like, okay, yeah, you could put some clothes on, I suppose, but I guess in Rio it is very casual. My friend did have a very funny quote where he says, "Rio is beautiful. I would never bring my family here." I suppose if you are a conservative, devout Muslim, Rio might be, I don't know, a bit too much, it's like just too much. Between that and the drinking, Brazilians love drinking. There is a national cocktail, I think it's called a caipirinha. It's made with a Brazilian rum. That was everywhere. Even on Copacabana Beach, there were carts with guys selling it. There were hawkers selling it. Almost anywhere you went, people were selling it, and you could, of course, drink whatever else too. Alcohol was all over the place. Brazilians, I guess, like drinking when they go to the beach. So, of course, we did do some tours and we did go see some sights. You can't go to Rio and not go to the statue of Christ the Redeemer on top of the mountain overlooking Rio. It does take some time to get to it. Like, I think in a vehicle, it took us like 45 minutes of just going uphill and switchbacks because it is high up. It is way up there. Some people think that there's like some kind of cable car that takes you up there, but there isn't. They're confusing that with another tourist attraction near the end of Copacabana Beach called Sugarloaf Mountain, which we also went to. The views there are also stunning. And, up top, there's like shops and things like that. At Christ the Redeemer, it's very crowded. We went early in the morning because the guide told us it's going to get worse as the day goes by. But already by like 9 in the morning, it was absolutely packed and it was hard to move around because it's a very small area. It's not very large because it's sitting on top of that mountain. The other surprising thing about Christ the Redeemer is that it is a chapel. Underneath Christ the Redeemer statue is a chapel. And there happened to be a baptism going on while 1,000 people are roaming around this place. There's a little tiny chapel room. It's something like 5 by 5 meters and they're having a baptism in there. I think the chapel could seat all of about 25 people. But yeah, a lot of people book special occasions at that chapel for obvious reasons because it's such a famous site. And I guess it does have a priest who operates the chapel. So that was kind of nice. Views were, of course, stunning. And everyone's just there constantly taking pictures of the views, taking pictures of the statue. Sugarloaf Mountain, the views are stunning. Absolutely gorgeous views. Sit, have a coffee or a drink, see all the views. Again, it's packed. Tons of people going up there, but it too was well worth seeing. Aside from Copacabana Beach, we also went to the other famous beach, which is very close, Ipanema. I think became famous from a song. Very similar vibe to Copacabana, not as developed in terms of hotels. There's not a lot of hotels at Ipanema. It's mostly like apartment buildings and things, but it's another like 3-kilometer beach that was right next to Copacabana. And it was packed too, with thousands of people all enjoying the day. So it was actually really nice. On the tour, we also went to a couple of other neighborhoods, including a neighborhood called Santa Teresa, I believe. Santa Teresa is sort of an old upscale neighborhood with very nice old homes that are, being redone, and also has a tram system that goes to the neighborhood. I think it's one of the oldest in Brazil, might be the only one that's still working. And there we went to a small restaurant where we tried acai, which is, of course, a famous dish in Brazil. We also had a famous Rio dish called pau do... how do you say it? Pau de queijo? Pau de queijo, which is a bread with cheese. It was pretty good. Didn't want to tell the guide that actually we had some better better palate, some other places, but the acai was top notch. It was probably the best acai that I had had during my time in Brazil. It was nice to visit that neighborhood. Again, safety during the day was no problem. Evening was another story. One evening, my buddy and I decided to take Uber out to a bar district, and within about 15 minutes, I was like, "Dude, we need to go. This place is not safe." Like it was a pretty rough neighborhood. You started seeing like some drug addicts and things, guys sitting on street corners for no apparent reason. I was like, no, we're out of here, man. Like, we got to get out of here. So then we went down to a much wealthier neighborhood near Ipanema, which was far better for walking around. And finally, I just want to point out one thing that was unusual in Rio that we saw during our tour. This building. Can you guess what this is? Yeah, this is the cathedral. This is a cathedral, as you'll see from the pictures now that I take inside. Very weird design. When the guy told us, no, this is a cathedral, I'm like, what? What is this? Like the Cathedral of Pyongyang? Like it just gave me that very North Korean communist-y vibe. But no, it's a cathedral. It's a cathedral that was designed in, I think, the 1960s, maybe the 50s. Very unusual design, but it is capable of seating 5, 6, 7,000 people for services and serves as the main cathedral for Rio de Janeiro. So there you are, a little unusual bit of architecture. We flew out of Rio at an airport that is very close to Copacabana Beach. They have a regional airport there. And as you take off, you get views of Copacabana and the neighborhood, which of course was stunning. It was a great airport. And then we flew back to Sao Paulo. Once back in Sao Paulo, we had a few days in the lead up to the wedding. So then we could do some proper sightseeing, including we went to what is called the Japanese neighborhood. It's sort of an old neighborhood where a lot of the Japanese immigrants back in the day moved to. And it is very close to the main cathedral for Sao Paulo, which of course we toured around. It was very crowded there as well. We also went to, what's the name of the museum? Ipiranga. There's a museum in Sao Paulo with big, beautiful park and grounds around it. I think it's called Ipiranga, something like that. And it looks like a palace. It almost looks like it might have been the former palace of the royal family of Brazil. They used to have a royal family. They used to have an emperor who ruled Brazil, I think up until the end of the 19th century. But actually the museum was never a palace. This was built when Brazil declared independence. So despite its design, it was always meant as a museum and other type of public building. And it had a number of exhibits discussing the history of Brazil. But one of the things it had was this painting. This painting is one of the most famous paintings in Brazil. It is known as Independence or Death. And it was painted by, I think his name was Pedro Américo, something like that. I'll put the name down below. And this painting is huge. It was, of course, a big focus of the museum. Hordes of people were there taking pictures of it. He painted it for Brazil's independence, so it has always been sort of associated with the independence of Brazil in the late 1800s. The views from the top of the museum were also quite nice. We also spent some time at the Sao Paulo Museum of Art, or maybe they call it the Metropolitan Museum. We were told to go there. It's like, no, you got to go to this museum. It has this great collection. There's a Picasso, there's a Monet or whatever. So I kind of figured, okay, it's going to have like, a couple of marquee paintings and then probably a bunch of stuff from Brazil. Most of it, there's a lot of modern art. And as you know, I'm not a huge fan of modern art, like just a lot of weird stuff in there. But then we did get to the areas with the more classical painting. Oh my God, the collection that the Sao Paulo Museum has was insane. I don't know why people are just like, yeah, it's got like a Picasso or whatever. It had almost every big name you could imagine. There were Van Goghs, there was Rubens, there was a Rembrandt, there was works by every impressionist master, every one of them, Gauguin, Monet, Toulouse-Lautrec, you name it, was all there. I think Botticelli, I think there was an old Botticelli one in there. It was nuts. I was just like, what the heck? Wow, like this museum had serious paintings. I don't know how they acquired all this. I really don't. Like the stuff would be worth tens of millions, some of those paintings. And yet, yeah, just all on one floor, just painting after painting by old European masters and impressionists and so forth. It was wild. And a Picasso. Okay, they had that too. Did they have a Dali? Can't remember. Probably got a Dali in there somewhere. So the museum actually really is worth visiting. It's on Paulista Street, the main street of Sao Paulo, and the collection is well worth seeing. As for the wedding itself, we went to my friend's place for a little celebratory evening dinner. We also went to the barber the morning of the wedding. He had arranged for some of the groomsmen to go to the barber. This barber, very high quality barber, weirdly enough, had a bar. Again, and then my Muslim friend was like, what is with all the drinking? Like, we're in a barber shop and there's a bar here. And so the guys were like having mugs of beer while we were getting, our shaves and haircuts and stuff. And they're like, oh, Glenn, do you want a mug of beer? And I'm like, it's 9 a.m, guys. Like, no, I'll have a coffee. And plus, if you're getting, your haircut with a big mug of beer, there's a risk like bits of hair might get in it. But no, I'm sort of the British tradition. You generally shouldn't be drinking before noon. And the idea of having a mug of beer while getting your haircut in the morning just was a bit odd. The wedding was fantastic. We had a lovely time. It was at a venue in the middle of Sao Paulo that had sort of a separate room for the actual ceremony itself, and then a separate area for the reception area, 2 levels, buffet, open bar with caparinas and all these other great drinks. And it was a very good time. Now, that took up a lot of the days, the preparation and so forth. So we didn't maybe tour a number of things in Sao Paulo that maybe we could have, but we were too busy going out to nice restaurants, doing a bit of shopping. We did tour those museums, but a lot of it was, helping out with the wedding and the wedding prep, and then recovering from the wedding, because you're up late and drinking and all that. Well, my friend wasn't, but of course I was, and our flight was the next day, so I did try to take it careful. I didn't want to be too hungover to then try to get on a plane for a 15-hour flight. So it was great going to Brazil. Sao Paulo, nice. It's a big city. It's got some cultural attractions. Rio, however, absolutely stunning, worth seeing. It's unfortunate that, of course, it's so far away. It's not like a place where you can we'll just, take a little trip off and go to Rio. But if you ever do get a chance, if for some reason you're traveling in the area, South America or whatever, absolutely go check Rio out. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to leave it there because this is a very long video and I still have Argentina to do. So I'll talk to y'all later. Love Brazil, and hope you have a good day.